Carried. Thank you very much. Right, so we'll now move on to item 8, and we have the same.
Did you want to hear from the zone committees, or?
If you're happy. Well, I think it's
okay,
they're here for the next thing anyway.
Okay,
So
cool.
minutes is
Sweet.
minutes.
Thanks.
Yeah, so now we're on to item 8, which you're all here for. So I'd like to welcome the chairperson, Gina, of the Banks Peninsula Zone Committee, Annabelle from West Melton, and Les from Selwyn, and Jamie, who I know. Oh, yeah, oh, there you go. There you go. I knew there was one missing. From ECAN, who are here to present the Triannual Zone Committee update. Welcome, and far away.
Morena, ko Annabelle Husmanaho and Les, you know, and Jamie, who is from the Banks Peninsula.
I'm actually the facilitator for the Selwyn Waihora Zone Committee meeting. Unfortunately, Gina couldn't make it this morning. She's come down sick, so.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll start off as from the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee. So firstly, I'd just like to welcome all the newly elected members on the Zone Committee. Councillor Mark Peters, Greg Burns from ECAN, and Phil Deans from the Selwyn District Council. And so it's great to have everyone on board, and we're looking forward to working together. And just to say that I have been re-elected as chair for 2023, and Mike Patchett is my deputy chair as well for the committee. Since we last presented, there's been a lot happening in the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee, and it's at the start of the year, it was really about team building. And we, unfortunately, I had COVID, so I couldn't go on the trip. But the committee went on the Otakara Avon, on the Kōtāne Waka, and this was really a trip to build team building, to orientate people to being on the water and to hear the stories of Ngāi Tahu and the early settlers. We've also had a great number of presentations to the committee, and this is really related around our budget and our funding on that. Rachel Barker from the Opawa Heathcote River Network presented on the Ngāpunawai Springs project, and the focus, this is really a focus on urban rivers and what the urban springs and what the pressures are on those, and this initial stage 1 funding enabled funding from the Waitaha Impact to Action Fund for stage 2, so that just shows the great impact that the Zone Committee can have on initiating things and getting things going. We also have had 2 amazing presentations from Jenny Bond, who's the facilitator of the Tatuno Tāne project, Urban Eels, and this is an amazing action learning project, and it works with schools in Otatahi to make, teaching them to be kaitiaki and to do actions to actually improve the habitat for the eels. Hayley Guglieletti presented to the Zone Committee on the progress of the Avon Otakaro River Clean, and she has been, they have been cleaning up rubbish from the river and sorting that with the schools. She also did a presentation for the Avon Otakaro Orchard Community Garden and Food Forest, and this is an amazing project where they're actually developing a blue-green roof on the building and looking at installing a rain garden around the front edge by the river of that building. And this is really, they are really an exemplar group, and with a huge focus on environmental awareness, and all credit to what they're doing because it's largely voluntary. The Healthy Waterways Action Plan, so this is going to come before council, I understand, in the next short wee while, and Belinda Margetts has presented to the committee on this, and we had another session on this in November, really honing down on what this was, and the committees really strongly support this Healthy Waterways Action Plan, and it will identify where we're at, where we need to be, and what we need to do to get healthy waterways in Otatahi. The committee also advocates for a collaborative partnership to ensure the community and there is political support for this. And the actions in this plan will need to be funded by council and have the support of the community to implement this. And we look forward to seeing this plan coming before us and the implementation of it. Around community engagement, we have the Stormwater Superheroes Award in November. We awarded that to awarded the champion stormwater superhero, and the champion stormwater superhero was Tunnel Wash on Selborne Street in Addington, and the runner-up was Ready Mix Concrete. And these awards really recognise business and industry around their excellence in stormwater management. The committee has agreed to hold these awards again this year, and a Stormwater Superhero campaign, will continue again this year and will align with the Community Waterways Partnership's focus on litter and sediment. Erosion and sediment control. Well, for everyone, this is a key ongoing area of focus for the Zone Committee and for the councils. In November, Christy Williams from the Opawa Heathcote River Network gave an amazing presentation about erosion and sediment control in the Opawa Heathcote River and the Cashmere Stream and the tributaries. And as you're all aware, 85% of the hill tributaries in those catchments have poor water quality. And due to the highly erodible lower soils on the Port Hills, sediment is a key contaminant of that catchment. At the beginning of April, Deputy Chair Mike Patchett presented to the Council around the committee's recommendations for an independent audit of the effectiveness of the regulatory arrangements and capacity building of erosion and sediment control. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to staff that presented a report around this, and also to the Council for your commitment in seeking improvement around this and your discussion around the table on that day. We look forward to seeing the staff recommendations as a follow-up from this, and seek ongoing commitment from the Council to get improvement in our waterways from this major contaminant. The Zone Committee will also be presenting to the Zone Committee Land and Water Committee around this recommendation. To the ECANS Land and Water Committee around this recommendation. At the end of April, as many of you have been invited, we will be holding a joint erosion and sediment control workshop with the Christchurch West Mountain Zone Committee, the Banks Peninsula Zone Committee and the Whakaora Healthy Harbour. And this is really to develop a collective solutions around this topic and look at the opportunities. There is a commitment from the Zone Committee to continue the Cashmere Stream and Port Hills Working Group, and after the joint workshop we will look at the terms of reference and membership of that to really strengthen that and to as a mechanism for implementing change and working with all the partners. The Community Waterways Partnership is still an ongoing activity that we are involved in and that we support, and we have been having workshops to learn about the impact framework, and also to trying to identify some key focus to bring the collective group together. And it's been agreed, as I mentioned before, that litter and sediment will be the key focus around that, and we'll try. At the end of May, there'll be a workshop, a hui, that will look at how the collective partners can come together to really reinforce that. The annual plans, as Yanni mentioned, we contributed to the annual plans and really on our focus to improve our waterways, and the key issues there were supporting the Healthy Waterways Action Plan, involvement in the Community Waterways Partnership, erosion and sediment control was a key one. And I've also got here, continue advocacy to central government with around finding solutions for the management of zinc and copper, fecal source tracking in our waterways to understand the impact of waterfowl and the management of waterfowl in our waterways, and supporting educational programs in schools around stormwater. So as a committee, we have a continued focus and a passion on improving the health of our urban waterways and working together with community and agencies responsible for water management. We look forward to working with the Council for the remainder of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Oh, you done? You've finished?
Yeah,
thank you, Pauline.
Yeah. Thanks, Annabelle. That's a really great report, and sounds like the committee's going really well. Just regarding the stormwater superheroes, so I know that you're targeting the commercial operators. Do they enter, or do you go around and choose who might be improving?
Yeah, well, that's probably one of the barriers is to getting the entries and who to who to approach of, you know, how we do it. So they enter, but it's, you know, trying to get that out. We're doing a program trying to get that out, and
Visibility.
awareness that this competition is happening,
Yeah.
and seeking them to.
So about how many did you have entering, do you know, last time?
I don't really want to discuss that, but yes, not a huge number, but yeah.
So the idea is, well, I mean, it's just starting out, so
Yeah,
no one's
yeah.
criticising that, but I think
Yeah.
it's great that we need to spread the word to get
Yeah.
people to enter,
Yeah.
and that leads to them building better practice.
And I think that's a job as a zone committee. That's something that we need to actually, you know, make happen, because that's the limiting factor of it. Is,
Yeah, well, that's where we can probably help as well,
Yeah,
somehow as
yeah.
well, by, you know, bringing it up too.
yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So when are they going to be this year, do you know?
I think we're looking at the end of the year. I'm not
Oh,
sure
that's
the exact date, but yeah, September again.
Yeah, so they just have to indicate that they've put in...
We've actually got a process of a form that they fill out and enter, and then as a committee a selection panel select the finalists of that, and then as a number of that panel go around and visit each site, and which was it was amazing last year, and and then we present an award. So we're looking at sort of improving that whole process and making a bigger award ceremony.
Yeah, would it be a good idea for perhaps you to send through an entry form that we could have a
Yep.
look at and maybe have in our back pocket?
Yes, that's
Great,
a great
thank
idea. Thank you. That
Thank-
would be really supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. Tim?
Just following on from Pauline, I guess something for the future is these companies talking to other companies about what they're doing to try and lift the game from everybody. Is that something that you guys are going to be looking at doing?
Well, I suppose one thing that we do is on the ECAN website that definitely tell the story of those areas. But yes, so these companies are really exemplars for, as you say,
Yeah.
for other companies. So that's another area of, you know, how we encourage, get that message out further and promote that further.
Because I know in other industries, you know, with health and safety many years ago, when that was kind of came to the fore over sadly a number of deaths, you got different people together for morning teas and things, and just tried to spread the word, and it seemed to work really well. So, but I think it's a fantastic initiative. Thank you very much.
Any support from the council would be welcome.
Yeah.
So if anyone's
something-
interested in
yeah.
building that contact.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Tara?
Kia ora. Thanks for that report. I was looking through the sort of the various water quality of the different water bodies around, and I was looking at Te Waihora, and I know it's not in the Christchurch West Melton zone, but it's in the other two, and its water quality was like the lowest possible, extremely poor. Are there sort of some specific risks that you know, in the very short term, to the ongoing water quality of, say, Te Waihora, that you've identified that we need to be mindful of?
Well, I can't speak for Te Waihora, but Les possibly could speak to that. But I could speak in terms of, you know, in the Christchurch West Mountain Zone, in terms of the risks. Well, one of the key risks is sediment and urban contaminants which comes from stormwater. So those are our two key risks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what, and our whole behaviour change, and so that whole, you know, like we've talked about, helping to get some collective action around managing sediment from development and from the Port Hills, and then just from stormwater in our residential properties and the industrial properties. You know, the stormwater goes straight into our rivers, and all the contaminants from our brake pads, from cars, from industry, from spills, from residential properties flows into our rivers. So it's really getting an awareness of that and a behaviour change around that.
Okay, thank you. Cheers.
What's it?
Mark, please. Yeah, no.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. That was very comprehensive. Just a quick query around the stormwater superheroes. Did you manage to get any publicity of that being awarded to those two companies? Thinking like the press or Star Media or someone want to pick it up?
No, that's a good point. And that's obviously something that we should follow up, not from the press or from the Star, but just through the ECAN channels, which is probably not, you know, the biggest audience necessarily.
Yep. So maybe it was something for Stephen to catch up with offline. And then another thought was, do the zone committees have any sort of leadership role at times of pollution crisis like we had recently in the Heathcote with the dead fish? I sort of saw, fairly interesting void in there, and I wondered whether the
Yeah.
zone committees might be a really good vehicle to, seeing as how you've got ECAN and council representatives there, where it could be a good vehicle to help fill that gap and make it happen.
Yes.
Just to add, because I've got a very similar question, just to add to that too, I'd just be interested in what the zone committee's discussion was, if any, around the toxic chemical spill, and if there was anything that you observed that we should be aware of that might improve responses or that sort of behaviour.
I'd say there has, because we haven't had a meeting, since it's happened, there has been no discussion around that. But we're also very aware that those issues are managed by ECAN, and there is a whole process that is, in train with that. So yes, there's a shock horror of it actually happening, and it goes back to that message of stormwater, everything, stormwater going into our waterways. But maybe that is a void. We should talk about that and see what we should be doing. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, Aaron?
Yeah, so a couple of questions, one around, and it's a bit of a follow-on. Pauline took most of the good questions at the start, which was good. They were great. Just with how important stormwater is to Christchurch and Canterbury and its management going forward, it kind of, to lift it up a little, would you consider rolling it into something else, like the Champion Canterbury Awards, which returned this year? If the environmental award was there, and we already sponsor one looking at the list here, but ECAN doesn't. So if ECAN were the sponsor of the Stormwater Superhero and it was awarded there, literally every major business and small business in Canterbury and Christchurch would know about it, and it would take on that prestige. Is that a conversation you'd be interested in having?
We haven't had that conversation, but we have had the conversation around, how do we get people wanting to involved, and the whole focus around it is, zone committee, and that's actually a really good idea to slot into that. I think. Thank you.
Because if we could suggest that to them, and then if that helps, then that'd lift it up
to actually
dramatically.
incorporate it, to work in partnership rather than us doing it in isolation, to actually pull it into the bigger.
Yeah, and for those exemplar companies that have gone out of their way to facilitate that, they should be recognised at something as big as the Champion Canterbury Awards, because it is that important.
Yeah, no, thank you. We were aware of that, so I think that's really useful. Thank you.
Okay, and it'd be great if ECAN became that sponsor too, and we could always do a second bit. And then the other one was around the sediment. Has that got worse over recent years? It'll be good to see a graph, because Christchurch has been developing for 150 years. Has it always been bad every time you scrape a paddock and build something, or has it got worse? Because the mitigations have meant to have increased in this century, but has it made a difference or not? Would be interesting to know.
Well, I suppose sediment is a natural process, but it's been accelerated in the Christchurch with the Port Hills and the lower soil on the Port Hills, which is just so hard to manage, and then with the clearing of the Port Hills of native bush, and that has increased the erosion, and then development and houses on highly erodible soils and land, and then just the whole compliance and control of that. So the answer, look, I haven't got exactly, but it will have increased from pre-European times.
Oh, well, absolutely. But over that 150 years, has there been spikes, or is it for some reason getting worse?
I haven't seen, but yes, I think it is definitely getting worse, and an issue to manage. It's a key contaminant. So
Bush is the best remedy. Okay.
And managing, finding out. One of the key issues around sediment is actually finding out where the hotspots are, where the key sources are, and then actually dealing with that, and that's what focus needs to be. And this whole concept of ki uta ki tai and bringing in climate change, biodiversity. So rather than just managing sediment, we're actually looking at the whole system, and we're looking at biodiversity, sediment, climate change. It's all a part of the whole system, and because sediment is sort of an effect of poor management.
Right. Cool. Thank you.
Yanni, did you have some more after Mark that you didn't?
Yeah, there was just just a brief comment. I'd encourage the zone committee to look at what collective response could be when we do have toxic chemical spills, around communication to community, working across agency, things like adequate signage, and also what the effects are on the river. Because to date, no one's even answered what the likely effects have been. We've had no information about the impact on things like the ecology. But just, I think I read, sorry, there's a lot of different minutes in here, and excuse me if this might be the wrong section to raise it, but I read somewhere that we were looking at, that there was a look at doing, similar to Littleton Whakarapo catchment plan, the same thing for the other side of the Port Hills coming down. And I just thought that was a really, I mean, it's something that I've been pushing along the Opawaho Heathcote for a long time. So I just wondered if anyone was sort of aware of that or could elaborate on that, and if you need, like, if you've considered what sort of resourcing you might be required to do that, and if there's a way we can help or support it.
So I know that discussion was had in the talk around erosion sediment control in your meeting at the council with the Port Hills management plan, and I know that Spade and Waihora Kashmir Community Board has put that in their plan, and yes, it's definitely a catchment approach is the way that we should be managing the Port Hills and bringing everyone together. It's not the role of the zone committee to be doing that. But it's, you know, but
so as Annabelle has said,
something
that it's
you
a
would
priority
support
for the community board, for our community board, which now goes from or the estuary right through, which is actually a really positive thing. So it's one community board dealing with that issue, which is a huge issue, and it's well and truly needs to be managed.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay,
Thanks.
so you all done, yeah? Okay, I've just got a couple. I was talking to a guy the other day who walks up down the Horsell River a lot, and he commented how much cleaner it seems to be to him of late. Is that just because perhaps none of those, just correct me if I'm wrong, none of those sediment or retention ponds in Sparks Road area go to the Horsell River, they all go down the Heathcote River, is that right?
Yeah,
so that's what we talked about, and I said, no, I think it's just generally maybe it hasn't been raining a hell of a lot and there's not as much sediment coming off the hills. So that's it, but he did comment that it seems to be a lot cleaner, and of course the cleaner the water that goes into Lake Ellesmere, the better. It's like thinners in your paint, so to speak. And the other thing is, don't forget that council was spending tens and hundreds of millions of dollars on retention basins and or sediment control, like at the Adventure Park, which is a sort of a hot spot, I suppose. So we're doing that. We're doing some down at Waitaki basins as well as Sparks Road, Steedmans and all that sort of thing. So we are doing a lot to try and capture as much sediment off the hill as we can.
No, thank you. I recognise that, but also you need to recognise that that is the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff catching the sediment, and we actually need to be managing the sediment on the hills and managing the hills so that it's not. Yeah,
but also take like the ones at Waitaki Street, that is hooking onto existing big stormwater pipes which come into the river. So we're attacking all that, say, brake pad stuff and things like that. So we are throwing a fair bit of effort at it. But I think it's starting to show results, so it's good.
It's a huge issue, and it's an ongoing issue that we need to be managing.
Okay, thank you. So no more questions. I will ask for a... Did I say sorry?
Oh, could I just note, I can't really speak in any great detail on the Banks Peninsula water zone update, but if you're happy to take it as read, and if anyone has any questions, I can take them away for Gina, the chair, and Shelley Washington, the facilitator, to follow up with the council, for the council.
Can do, yeah. Anyone got any questions or can forward them on? Okay, nothing? All happy? Yanni?
The only thing that sort of troubles me with the whole process is around the Canterbury Water Management Strategy reporting against the targets. And I just wondered, is there any document, this has sort of previously been raised, is there anything, because we hear about all the good work that the zone committees are doing, and I appreciate that, but we actually have the regional strategy with targets set, but it's very hard to kind of get from the report how we're progressing. And is there anything that we can get circulated around us that could show us how we're progressing against the targets? And I know, for example, one of the things that was supposed to be done was a review of consents to see around what the impact is in terms of limits of different things that are having an adverse impact on the environment. But we don't get any sense from the reports around that bigger picture. And I just wondered if that is something that...
Yes, so the CWMS overarching targets and goals reporting happens every 2 years. So the next big update or progress update will be later this year. So that should give you, I guess, a better sense of how we're tracking against the targets and goals.
Is there nothing that happens between 2 years that we can monitor?
I guess like it's maybe something to consider as part of the reporting to council going forward.
Okay.
That I guess the reports themselves be more targeted towards that instead of.
Okay, I'll ask it in our
Thank you,
three
Yannick.
waters.
Righto. Now, Pauline's got a question of Les.
Yes, thanks, Les. Kia ora. Are you not doing an update on the Tuahura?
Yes, I suppose after Jamie, I was just going to speak on the fact that we are a very young and new committee. I've been there for 9 years, and the next person's been on there as a councillor from Environment Canterbury, who's been there for 4 years. Everybody else has only been there for 2 years or less. So we are a new zone committee that's just getting ourselves together around the table. And that's why we won't have a comprehensive report as Annabelle has, for the simple fact we hadn't had, with the COVID, we hadn't had a chance to sit down at the table and put in goals. And the last time we just went through our goals and written format on last Monday just gone. And that's setting them for the next 2 years. Prior to that was 2021, that we had actually had a meeting to sit down at the table and set goals and targets.
No, that's fine, that's fine. So my question, if I may, is just a really easy one. Does your committee have any engagement with the Central Plains Water Trust? Or are you intending to?
Yes, we do. We are coming up with a presentation from. Unfortunately, I can't speak on at this table on the Central Plains Water. I am a trustee of the Central Plains Water.
Right.
So,
but
yeah,
I would
I
assume,
just put it this way. Yes, we are going to have a presentation.
I would assume you'd have an engagement and a relationship with them
Yes.
anyway. Thank you. That's cool. Cheers.
Okay, now Pauline's happy to move this, and I'm more than happy to second it. Have we got any debate? Yes, Yanni.
Yeah, I want to thank the zone committees for the work that they do. It is really important work, but I do think we need to think as a council how we do get better information around what's being done around the Canterbury water management strategy. If you look at freshwater species and their habitat, you know, the goal in 2020, an upward trend in diversity and abundance in native fish populations, it's listed as not being met. We have not identified key Canterbury species to monitor, nor do we conduct regular fish monitoring to enable us to show if we are meeting the goal. And, you know, for those of us who live and represent areas around the river, it's really distressing when we see impacts of industrialisation and activity on our native ecology and our biodiversity. And it's deeply concerning that we don't seem to have any sense of, through our water management strategy targets, what's being done. Now, I know there's a lot of good work being done. I know there's a lot of different monitoring going on with different agencies. Council's got staff, you know, hopefully ECAN's got staff, but, you know, there's also a number of other management's measures, environmental limits, for example, which if you go through 2020 goal to review environmental flows and catchment load limits, and, you know, look at that if requested by regional and zone committees, target not met. So I just think we need to kind of think about how we can make sure that we do get good understanding of why we're not meeting those targets and what's being done to remediate. And I guess in conclusion, though, I do want to really acknowledge the strong focus on erosion and sediment control that the zone committees are bringing in front of us, although it is disappointing that this has been going on for at least a decade. We've been reading the same information, the same reports, and the problem has been getting worse, not better, and it's glaringly obvious to anyone that goes past the rivers after a heavy rain. You can just see the rivers turn brown. So I'd encourage council to think seriously about what we can do to get better information around the targets that are set at the Canterbury-wide level, and to strongly support the efforts around the erosion and sediment control, because for far too long we've allowed this to continue with a lack of improvement, and in fact a situation that's getting worse. And but I want to acknowledge, I know that there's people that are doing good work trying to address these issues, and maybe it's just a question of resourcing and a question of thinking about how we do things differently to make a better difference, because I am deeply concerned that the Canterbury Water Management Strategy targets are just sitting up here, and we're not really seeing good progress around even measuring whether they're being met or not.
Pauline.
Yeah, thanks, Yanni. Look, I also reiterate the thanks to the zone committees, and I have been a member of the Christchurch West Melton, and I do know the amount of work that goes on, and particularly within those zone committees you have the working groups, which is what does a bit of the legwork as well, and have established really close working relationships with volunteer groups. And so it's taken us a long time to reach this level of toxic pollution in our waterways. It's not going to be fixed overnight. And I think that the Zone Committee, together with our council, our Community Waterways Partnership, and our Healthy Waterways Action Plan, bringing all these things together, working together on these things, we've got a much better chance of making really good progress. A lot of the problems do sit at national level. I mean, the copper-free brake pads is just it's head-banging. I mean, we took that as a remit to local government years ago, and the Minister agrees, but it just takes legislation to stop bringing in these brake pads that have copper in them, because the alternative brake pads apparently are equally as good and a similar cost, so it belies logic why that hasn't been picked up. However, thank you for coming in. I think the fact that you come in and talk to us is really, really super helpful, and it's helpful for all of us, for you and for us, because the key to this is to work together and to work with our communities. So we've got to keep an eye on the Community Waterways Partnership. We've got to keep an eye on that we're funding these projects suitably so that we can see results. So we all want to see results. So thank you.
Tim and then Mark.
Yeah, look, thank you. And I think Annabelle hit it on the head really earlier on. When we really do have to nail it at the source. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars, which I think is money really well spent on the retention basins, because they can be used for so many other things, recreation, etc. But I do think we've got to get stronger with regards to working with those at the source, and I really admire that they're stormwater champions, and I think that could be a really good step in following on from what Aaron said about really getting it visualised and really in people's faces with the Champion Awards. I think it's a really good way forward. So I look forward to working with you guys on that, if you'd like. But we passed an item the other day which I voted against because I felt that it wasn't strong enough. We do have to get on to that. The key is working with those at the source to solve the problem, and I think that's a really good way forward, and I think that's what we should be focused on moving forward. But as Pauline said, the copper brake pads, it's insane. Literally, the governments and different governments have all said this about we've got to nail the environment. California has nailed it. You cannot get a copper brake pad in California. We're a tiny little country at the bottom of the world, which our population is smaller than any of the main cities in California, and yet a decade we've been talking about this, over a decade actually. It's insane. The government really does need to pull its finger out, and we need to work with them and with each other. So I'm really looking forward to moving forward with the zone committees.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, team, for coming and presenting your report. It's an interesting sort of facet of council that I hadn't really been too aware of until I got elected to council, and I'm really looking forward to working with the zone committee together with community boards and council and ECAN to try and take this to a new level where we can make some serious inroads and difference in our waterways. And this idea with the copper brake pads, I think we've got to really put some pressure on the government heading into the selection to see if we can't get them to commit as a team, both sides, to get this nailed and start making some serious inroads into what we need to do for our environment. Also, I did notice that the Banks Peninsula Committee have a real good focus on planting in their catchments, and I'd really like to see all the zone committees commit to the idea of working with the organisations like Te Ara Kakariki do the green dots and to help build that planting in the catchments so that we can catch that sediment on the hills and around before it gets to the waterways. So keep up your good work and look forward to engaging.
Thank you. With that, I will put the motion that we receive the information. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in.
Kia ora, Mayor. Kia ora, Tyler.